Welcome back, everyone, for another fun-filled edition of the Two Boos podcast. I am, of course, Boo Santiago, and I am joined by the tall drink of water himself.
That's it? That's all I get? You normally rev me up, dude.
I'm going straight. Make sure you're on your toes.
What does tall drink of water mean? Who's sipping me?
You know who's sipping you.
It's giving me a little sippy sip. My name is Boo Collier. That is Boocolier. Boo Collier.
Thank you. Thank you for clearing that up. And together we make the Two Boos.
Two Boos.
And Brian, this is an episode that is a long time coming. We have both been behind the scenes talking about the subject matter that we're going to be discussing today. And I'm very excited to finally dig into it. And that is none other than this guy right here.
Dune.
We are talking all things Dune. We're talking about the book. We're talking about the adaptations. We're going to talk about what we liked about the book, what we didn't like, what we liked about the movies, what was different from the books and the movies, and just have an overall fun time hanging out discussing this very interesting science fiction story that has influenced many of different creators and many different forms of media out there. But before we do that, we also have to introduce a very special guest that will also be joining us in this discussion. He's someone that we know and love. He's someone that has joined us on the podcast before, and that is none other than Brian's own flesh and blood. It is Lee BBC Collier. We're just going to keep rolling. Yeah, we're just going to keep rolling with that because, I'm feeling it. So, anyway, Lee, there it is. What
was that? I didn't really catch any of that.
Just go ahead, play that again.
Play that again.
LEE-san Al Gaib.
Yeah, if you know.
I'm here. I am the LEE-san Al Gaib.
The LEE-san Al Gaib is here. Lee himself. If you know, you know. And I'm sure we'll be bringing that up even more later on in the show. But first things first, Lee, how are you feeling, good sir?
Dude, I am stoked. The three of us have been talking about this movie for weeks. And our schedule just did not have lined up. So let's get it done.
Yes, it's nice. So without further ado, I'm just going to jump into it because combined, we have a bunch of notes together of things that we wanted to touch on.
And, I didn't add my notes to our notes. I'm sorry. I have my own notes. Okay. I just realized that.
That's fine.
Oopsie.
That's fine. That's fine. So let's just go ahead and talk, and let's also just kind of lay out the perspectives, because I think what's cool here is we have a lot of different perspectives as far as how we took in between the book and the movie. So Lee and I both read the books. At least I have 40 pages left in Dune, the first Dune book here. And Lee also read the book as well. Brian, which we actually discussed this on the last podcast where Lee was on. Brian's not the biggest reader.
Well, we talked about it. I don't really want to relive it, but I forgot how to read. I just woke up one day and just out of my brain.
That's a tough subject. So we'll just go right forward. But Brian has seen both Dune Part 1 and Part 2 as well. I also
illegally.
So I think. Well.
I legally streamed it, everybody. I illegally streamed it at home. Boo supplied it to me. I was against it.
Was what you're saying. You meant legally.
I legally streamed it. You illegally tore it from somewhere. So
I will not confirm nor deny that statement.
It was it was beautiful. It was like crystal clear, dude. I don't know. It was unbelievable.
Because it was legal.
I agree.
Well,
only a legal copy could be that clear. Why would you think otherwise?
That's true. Now that you say it.
Of course. So Brian's seen the movies, we've read the books, and I also even checked out some of the earlier adaptations of Dune that came out, specifically the 1984 version. So we'll touch a little bit on that as well. But first things first, Brian, I apologize, but we are going to start with the book itself and just give some quick thoughts of the book.
Jerks.
I'll actually let Lee start it up here. Lee, if you want to jump in. And
I think we need to make a distinction too, because there's actually three different takes here. We'll start with Brian. Okay. Brian's only watched the movies. Hasn't touched the book. Mm-hmm. You watched the movies and then read the book.
That's true. Yeah, the timing actually makes sense as well.
Right. So I read the book and then watched the movies. I actually never watched Dune until this month, and I probably wouldn't even have read the book if it weren't for you, suggesting that we do it. So
ultimately, what you're saying is I'm the biggest loser.
No, I'm saying it. This is actually going to be really excellent from a perspective because there's 3 very different interaction models with the movie and the book.
Those who don't read and just watch the movies, comment below and say, "Fuck reading."
Hold on, Brian. You can't. This is a family show. You can't do that without.
Oh wait, hold on. Let me try it again. Lee. Okay, you ready? Those of you who don't like to read, comment "fuck." There it is. Reading.
I almost got it. It's hard to predict when you're going to say, but I'll try to get better at it.
Yeah. So that's a great distinction to make there, Lee. And I didn't even think about that. Yeah, right. Yeah, I actually saw both movies first and then read the book. It enticed me so much to go actually dig in deeper and check out. That's what she said. Dig in deeper and check the source material. So speaking of the book itself, I guess Lee, I'll let you start it up. Let's just start with the positives. Let's lean into the positives. What are some things that you enjoyed from the book? Try not to compare as much with the movies. Just kind of overall, just because you are, like I said, you're more of an avid reader. And one thing I forgot to mention last time when you're on is that you have a TikTok page dedicated to your reading journeys and different things that you take in, which I did want to shout out, which is pages_apart, right?
Yeah. Just on TikTok. I mean, Jen has the Insta, but she doesn't keep it up to date. And actually, I'm about to post something, which is a huge book haul. If anybody's interested, I'm going to post that tomorrow.
Yeah, I will make sure to put your TikTok information in the description for this video. So if you guys are on TikTok, if you're into books, you want to learn more about different books out there and get Lee's takes on it, definitely make sure to take it out. But without further ado,
even if you're not in the books, I like watching my brother, and I don't know how to read. So
that's true.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. That's great. I love the soundbites.
You guys you're bullying me. You're bullying me.
That's true.
There are plenty of 31-year-old men who don't know how to read. Just so everybody knows, too, I do know how to read. I actually do know how to read. I just, borderline. I'm like a third grade level. I just don't enjoy it.
You told me you're a big Dr. Seuss guy.
Oh, yeah. Now that I have a child.
About the doctor.
Michelle will see me reading Dr. Well, that just, she kind of just took it in, but I would just sit there at night for 2 to 3 hours reading one single Dr. Seuss book, and I'd be struggling. I'd be breaking a sweat trying to read those words.
Going green eggs and ham.
I was going, in the cleanest sense, green eggs and ham. But anyway, let's get back to Dune. This is it's inappropriate. Yes.
So Lee, go ahead if you want to start it up. What are just some things that just stuck out to you, things that you liked from the book that you thought that kind of stayed with you, and what did you dig about it?
Yeah, I mean, well, again, thanks for encouraging me to finally read this book. But it was written in 1965. Let's just stop and think about that. This book was written before Star Wars, right? Yes. This book was written before almost any modern science fiction movie that you've watched, and it really
during Vietnam.
What's that?
It was during the Vietnam War.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. So that when I found out when it was written, it kind of hit me what was this guy doing? And then I realized he was doing mushrooms.
Oh, yeah. Well, no shit. Yeah.
He loves spice. I didn't know that, actually. Right? He loves spice. But the book itself, I actually cruised through it. I couldn't stop reading it. I genuinely enjoyed it. I'm not the biggest science fiction reader, and it kind of sparked my desire to read more science fiction. So I think I just finished a 3-body problem before I got into this, and it just made me want more. I bought the Poppy War, which is another big trilogy that's going around right now. I wouldn't be surprised if there's an adaptation of that. And as you can see behind me, I bought the second Dune book because I want more. I actually thought that the books were, spoiler, I thought the book was better than the movie. I love the movie as well, but I don't know. It was just really incredible. Once you get an understanding of this culture and this war that's going on and who Paul really is, that's what I think we'll probably talk about a lot. There's a lot of trickery in his writing because, I kind of fell in love with this character. And then at the end, I was even texting you. I'm like, do you feel the same way I do? Is it supposed to be this emotional and your opinion about him changed so much? But Yeah, and the way that he writes about the worms, I think that that was really entertaining too. And I actually think that Danny's representation of what the worms are with Frank Herbert's imagery in the book were seamless.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a really awesome adaptation in my opinion.
Yeah, not jumping too far as the adaptations, but I feel like that's one thing that pretty much all the movies I think did really well is the whole how they interpreted the worms and the sandworms and how everything works with that was really well. But yeah, for me, I enjoyed it. I've always been a pretty big fan of science fiction, but yeah, that was one thing too with you mentioning how influential the book was, is that I honestly, this might seem crazy, but I didn't even know the book existed. Like before the movies, I didn't know it was even a thing. And then I knew the movie when they announced the movie Dune. I saw a lot of hype for the 2021 Dune that it was coming out, and people were like, "Oh wow, shit, Dune's coming out! They're making it." And it had Denis Villeneuve attached to it, so people were excited. But I was like, "What the hell's Dune? I don't even know what that is." And here I was just sleeping on this vast, like epic, just deep science fiction, mystical whole world that was built around it, and you can't help but make it's not the same, but in the same vein of Tolkien, where it's this crazy, just epic, this whole world that's created with characters and histories and wars and background. So when I knew that was a thing, it got me really intrigued. And reading the book, it was the same thing. And the way that he writes, at least the way I took it, was like he just kind of throws words out there. And I even probably texted you this, that I was like, I didn't know if it was like a word that I just didn't know, like an actual real word, or it was something that is part of the world. And the way that he effortlessly just builds that into paragraphs, it was very interesting. Thankfully, there's actually an appendix in the book, so I was going back to the appendix trying to find if this term was actually part of the world or if it was something that I just wasn't aware of in the real world. But I really did enjoy it. The characters in it as well. Paul, how he's able to take kind of what you think is like a hero's journey kind of, and kind of spin it in different ways and use different allegories with like, religion and philosophy and, mysticism and all that. Being able to blend that in with this character is really neat. And then the whole background of the Fremen and making this spice that is just so wanted by everyone in the galaxy. It's just, it's a really cool concept, and I was digging it. I will say Frank Herbert's writing does kind of, in certain areas, it does draw on for a little bit.
Sure.
But I feel like that might be a trope of science fiction in general. But cause I've seen that with some science fiction writing. Sometimes it kind of gets very convoluted as it goes, and there's a lot of exposition and things. But other than that, like I said, I enjoyed it overall. So, Brian?
Yeah, I completely agree with you guys. There's so many things that I want to say when it comes to the reading of it, but I can't because I didn't read it. But I agree. Okay, I agree with all the things you guys said, and I just can't wait for my time to shine when it comes to talking about the movies.
Well, here's a question for you: were you aware of the book before the movies came out, or were you
I actually was. I'm not a complete and utter idiot.
What were you gonna say there?
I don't know. I almost said asshole.
Yeah, that's why.
I'm not an asshole.
Yeah.
A little delayed there. But I didn't know anything of it. So it blew my mind whole when I watched the movie, not when I read it. So, and the spice.
LEE-san Al Gaib. LEE-san Al Gaib.
It's just every time they say it.
Yes.
And just to clarify for my own overall well-being as well, the spice is meant for space travel, correct?
They do use it for space travel.
They use it for spice, so they're not just. It's not like Star Wars. They're just getting a little bit of a high on the spice.
No,
like this,
it does
this
have
spice is like.
Yes, it has psychoactive elements to it, but it's also, if you have concentrated amounts of it, it can lead to. I'm putting it very simple, but like powers, of a certain sort, depending on where it's used. So they have the Space Guild, if I'm saying that right. I think it's the Spacing Guild is what they call it. But they pretty much have a monopoly on all the space travel, and they have these guild navigators that essentially ingest the spice, and they help control interplanetary travel and all that stuff.
Yeah, because they made that very clear in the first movie that was the reasoning why it was so highly wanted, is because it's what allows space travel to be a thing. Without it,
Yeah, I mean,
wouldn't happen.
And it gives you longer life. It has a bunch of different properties that people vibe for, and it become basically like a currency in its own way.
And it turns your eyes blue. You can only
find it on Arrakis, yes, and it turns your eyes very blue.
Dude, I want blue eyes so bad after watching those movies. I just want my eyes to be blue.
It's
badass, dude.
The overall lore of the spice was really intriguing. Like how much time and effort he had to put into thinking about just how the spice is created with the sandworms, and how basically the way that their ingestion and how they, I guess it's from their poop or whatever, but like the whole ecosystem of how this thing is created, and what drives the need for it. And then also certain individuals are addicted to it in a way that like they can't actually leave the planet. Was that Gurney? One of them is I can't remember who it is, but anyway, they talk about it, and just really interesting. I kept thinking about how much time and effort he probably put into the circle of life within that spice. I don't know. It's weird.
I want some spice.
And it's also worth saying that there are additional books that he wrote after this one.
I think Herbert's main set of six, are considered like the primary arc. Everything his son has done afterwards. I mean, I don't know that I'll ever read one of those, but his son.
Shots.
Well, look up some of the stuff about it. I don't know. He goes off in some strange directions, but I guess if you just need more Dune in your life, then maybe you're okay with it. It just, he just continued to put out product on his father's behalf that I question, would his father have wanted him to do that? But I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
God rest his soul.
I'm just looking through all the many of Dune books out there, and there's tons.
Tell Pickle to be quiet. I hear him back there barking. Tell him to shut his little dog mouth.
I might have to disappear from the screen for a second to shush him up if he doesn't stop.
Just starting. The original book came out in 1965, and they have been making books all the way up until 2022. There's a book called The Heir of Caladan that came out by Brian Herbert, his son, Frank Herbert's son, which is part of the Caladan trilogy. So, I mean, it's crazy how many films. So if you really want to get, or not films, I'm sorry, books, but if you really want to get deep, there's technically a million sequels, but I think those core 6, if you just want to kind of get into the, get right into it and get the core story, I would stick to 6. I'm probably, at this point, only going to go up to probably Children of Dune, but we'll see how it goes from there. But anyhow, that's our kind of thoughts on the book. Was there any like negatives that you had, Lee, that as far as the book itself? I kind of touched on just kind of the writing, it kind of drawing on. It's like there's a point where when Paul and Lady Jessica get into the desert after the Harkonnen attack or assault on Arrakeen, it stays with Paul and Jess for a long time, and they're kind of just doing the same thing. They're just dealing with the sand, dealing with the storms, dealing with the sandworms, and you're just kind of waiting for them to meet Stilgar and Chani and that whole crew. And that was one thing. It kind of drew on, and I was like, all right, like I'm with you, but like let's get this going. So I don't know if you had anything that kind of you weren't a fan of. I know some character things you didn't really like Baron.
I was texting you during those times because I felt the same way, that midsection, it definitely felt like it was dragging a little bit. But I kind of took joy in those moments where they were explaining the still tent and, the still suit and how these things operate. He filled some of that political messaging in the middle with some interesting elements. There was definitely some time where I was like, all right, let's get on with the story. I agreed with you about the Jessica part, which did not feel anywhere near as drawn out in the film. But also in the book, yes. So I'd mentioned this just today. The Baron, I despised that guy. And I actually thought that he was pretty cool in the movie. I felt a little different about him. But like in the book, he's just, he's despicable. Yeah. He's incredibly intelligent, though, in the book because he has this plan in a plan.
Was he just as fat?
Actually, what's that?
Was he just as fat in the book?
I can't remember how it alludes to his body.
They talk
type.
to him like they use a weird word like bulbous or something bubbly or something like that. So you kind of get the idea.
People say that about me.
But there's some there's some weird elements about him that they touch on that I just didn't feel like super comfortable with around, like him and what's his nephew's name?
Fade.
I can't think right now.
Fade Routha.
Yeah, Fade Routha.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little weird, but I think that with a trope in writing, Frank did a great job. He employed the trope of I'm going to make you hate this person by displaying his despicableness in front of you, if that's even a word. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I didn't like that he hit on a couple times, it felt like he kind of victimized homosexuals in a way that was like very transparent. And I also read that maybe he was not happy that one of his sons was homosexual. I don't know. I don't want to go that deep into it, but like it was kind of weird. Felt like that's another trope, and actually Stephen King has deployed that one as well. Like some of their villains will be homosexual, and of course this was written in the 60s. I don't think people are taking that approach today, but yeah, that one wasn't.
They didn't even know gays existed back then. They had no idea.
True. Yeah,
it was just a foreign concept to them from
they were
Europe.
Like hippies or something. Like Creed Bratton.
They were like, we don't have gays in America. That's the 60s, dude.
It was muddy, slipped in there too. I would have never known.
I made love to many women. A man could have slipped in there. Who would have known?
In the 60s, I made love to many, many women, often outdoors, in the mud and the rain. And it's possible a man slipped in. Would be no way of knowing.
Who knows?
But there is. I took a note, and I don't want to forget to say this one. Because I was thinking about it today and I had to look it up. I don't have the exact quote, but talking about spice. So Chani says something like spice tastes like cinnamon. And then Dr. Yue says, but never twice the same. It is like life. It presents a different face each time you take it. And I just thought that was such an awesome quote. And, I think one last thing, and then I'll stop talking for a little bit. The book represents Kynes in a very different way than the movie. And I loved the way that Kynes was represented in the book. I wasn't as like keen on how they did in the movie. I understand why they did, and it's fine. But yeah, Kynes was an awesome player in the book and got kind of a little spotlight in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we might as well just jump right into it with the movies itself. Because, there are a few things I want to highlight, but they're in relation to the movie. There's definitely some things that were changed for the movie. There's definitely some characters that were altered, some motives, things were added, removed. So without further ado, let's get into the actual adaptations. Now, I do have
time to shine, people.
It's Brian's time to shine, and Brian gets first dibs. But I did want to mention before, there have been other adaptations of the book prior to the ones that came out in 2021 and 2024. There was one in 1984 directed by David Lynch that came out that for a lot of people also changed things from the books, but for a lot of people it was kind of like a cult classic. There was a good following behind it. Didn't do so well critically, but people kind of commended him at least trying to adapt this book that for a lot of people had said was not a book you could even adapt in the first place. So I do want to mention that. And then in the 2000s, I think exactly 2000, there was a mini series that came out on HBO for Dune as well that also had kind of mixed reactions to. And then that gets us to 2021 where Dune Part 1 came out. That was directed by Denis Villeneuve. If you're not familiar with him, I think me personally, I think he doesn't miss. I think all his movies that he's made have been top-notch, whether it's Prisoners, Sicario, Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, all different. I mean, I think he's one of the best directors out now. So when I've heard that he was signed on to do this film, I was instantly intrigued because I was already a fan of him as well. So let's start with the first Dune itself. Brian, I know you saw that. So let's just start. What was your kind of overall thoughts on the 2021 Dune? Also not having any background in the books and just kind of going into it fresh.
I enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed it. I don't know why it took me so long to watch it, to be honest with you. I watched like the first 15 minutes of it on a plane when I used to travel for work. And I was distracted. I think I had to piss the whole time. So I wasn't really paying attention to the movie at all. Plus, I wasn't sure what the movie entailed. So, like, on a plane, when you're watching certain movies, you're kind of nervous to, like, make sure there's nothing going to pop up on the screen. So I wasn't sure. I had no idea what the movie was. I enjoyed it, but like I didn't really think about it. And then once we had this discussion, I was like, damn, I got to watch this movie. I loved it, man. I loved it. Visually, I loved it. It was a lot of ear pleasure. But seriously, like the score and stuff like that is awesome.
Yes.
I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I like the casting a lot. I'm a sucker for Zendaya. How do you say his name? Timothy Chalamet? Shamalama Ding Dong.
That's how you say it.
Yeah, I'm not saying his name right at all. It's actually
LEE-san Al Gaib.
That's true.
Well, yeah. But in real life, casting wise, in real life. And then, I mean, for goodness sakes, man, we had a Skarsgård in there. I didn't even realize that initially. Stellan Skarsgård, yeah, who played Baron. So, I mean, and then who else is it? I mean, there's so many, like,
yes.
I remember I watched it with Michelle, the first Dune, and it was just like, I didn't really know the whole cast. I knew like Zendaya was in it. I knew Timothy was in it, but like, it was just person after person after person. I was like, damn, dude, this cast is killing it. It's like incredible.
Yeah, this is one of those films where you can say it had a legit ensemble cast, and that's one. Thank you for mentioning that because I forgot to mention. Besides the director, they also have like a star-studded cast of people that are, well renowned, and I think they all brought their A game for this, which is nice as well. I think everybody was into it. Everybody, from what I've seen, at least had some familiarity with the source material. I don't know if they've read it, but they were aware of it and excited. I know Javier Bardem, who played Stilgar, he was very excited. And he's one of my favorite characters from the book and from the movie, I think. And that shows, that's probably why, like, he's always been a fan of the books, and he's been a fan particularly of Stilgar. So when he got the call to do the movie, he was literally hoping, he's like, please be Stilgar. And when he got it, he was like super excited. So, the cast was just tremendous.
I mean, this had to be one hefty paycheck for all these people. I mean, Jason Momoa is in it, Oscar Isaac, Javier Bardem, Josh Brolin, Dave Bautista. Yeah, you got Thanos in there, and then you got Drax.
And Drax.
I mean, dude, it's just like...
Can we just say that Gurney is like truly epic? I mean, I think he's up and above better in the movie than in the book, but yeah, I love Josh Brolin's character. Holy crap.
Well, I was wondering, and I will get to this, but because I didn't read the book, I had no idea what happened to him. Like in the first movie when they go to fight, and then he just disappears. And it was funny because towards the end of the movie, I was like, where the hell is he? And then even in the beginning of the second movie, I'm like, where is he at? Like, I don't know what happened to him. And like Josh Brolin, I'm like, he's a big character, man. This dude's just gone. So when he showed up in the second one, I was like, hell yeah, dude. When he got out, I was happy as hell. And I thought that whole interaction between him and then Paul, like him and Paul like reuniting and everything, like he didn't realize it was Paul initially. That scene was awesome. And then to have him like introduced back in and you get clarity on what happened, dude, I loved it.
I think in that scene they did the book and the movie. They were pretty close in how they did the scene, and I think both ways were good. I think in the book and the movie, and they both got to the same point. And I think that is some of the strong things in this film is they take out a lot of that exposition, that explanation. They cut that down. They cut down the time to really get to the meat of what you need to know. And I think they do it in a way that doesn't lose the person watching. You don't get lost or confused, and you're still kind of able to follow, but still getting tidbits of information that you need for this world. And that's credit to the actors and the writers and everything.
Thank you for letting me talk.
You can speak now, and then I will speak after.
I was listening to a podcast today while I was mowing, just to like respark about Dune. I did not realize that they only greenlit the first movie. So actually, I don't know who it was who produced the movie.
Warner Brothers,
right? So they were like, prove yourself out, and then we'll let you make a second one. That's really crazy. But that was also based on the fact that I think Danny's previous movie didn't do so well. So they were kind of testing the waters there. And also the fact that Dune had never been done ultra successfully before.
Yeah.
And wow, they totally knocked it out of the park. I mean, I loved the first film. I also love the second one, but I thought the first one was just unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed the first one better.
Could you imagine not knowing though whether or not you're going to be able to make the second? Because it did kind of leave you, and I guess we can talk about this later. There's that like cliffhanger.
Yes.
But wow,
which kind of ballsy on Denis' part of still moving forward with doing the cliffhanger, even though it was kind of uncertain how it was going to be received. Because that movie ends expecting that it's going to. That you need to, prepare for the next part in the, in the story. Like there is really not a definitive end per se. And the second one kind of picks up directly from where the last one started.
The second one got right into it. Like you have that initial, and you guys can tell me what it is. The voice, like in the beginning of the first one, that like weird, like really deep voice, like I turned it on and it's just like a black screen and wording comes up. I forget what it says, and it played that voice. And Michelle, I was laying in bed watching it on my computer, and Michelle was like, "What the hell is that?" And then and then you get right into it. Like it's just like boom, we're dropping in right where we left off, which I enjoy. I don't need any like recap. Like just get me into
it. And that's one of those things that
oh my, dude,
I thought you were playing a soundbite.
Yo. I thought that he just burped. I thought he burped so hard in that mic right now. I was like,
it's like funny because Jessica will just be like, "You will not do that."
Yeah,
exactly.
I love that. I love that too. When he's like, what do they call it? The voice in the first one, where she's like, she does it and he does it. Dude, it was cool because I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what was happening, and then once I kind of figured it out when they explained it a little bit, I was like, dude, that's badass.
Essentially, creepier Jedi mind tricks. Essentially,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's so let's because we've already touched on it. We've said that it's influential. Lee mentioned about the influence of this film. That is one thing. Like as I was watching the first one, I'm like, dude, Star Wars. Like I couldn't help but like George Lucas had to have been influenced by this film. I mean, you talk about where the central story lies, on this desert planet. If you look at and actually in Tatooine, there was a scene where they had these I can't remember the name of them, but they were like, I think they're crate dragons, I think they might call them. But they were actually these like dragon worm type things in Tatooine. And also too the correlations between Anakin and Paul. You could also say too with him being destined for he being the chosen one and then turning and becoming this villain. Like there's tons of references. And the Bene Gesserit being very similar, kind of similarities to the Jedi Order or maybe even Sith using those powers. Like there's tons of stuff, and I'm like, dude, like, and Lee, you and I talked about this one too. Maybe not, but I thought about it. Beetlejuice. If you remember, when they open those doors into like the portal and they go into the sand world, there's all these sand worms and everything. Like I'm sure there's tons of different media you could find where people have probably taken some ideas or some influence, but it just goes to show how popular and influential it is. Where you can't help but notice things after seeing that film.
Tremors,
like, dang,
Tremors, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like
and how many sequels did Tremors have just based on those damn worms?
God. The first Tremors is great.
Oh yeah,
it is.
Kevin Bacon, right?
Yeah, man.
He's always had the ability to be Prime. Have you seen pictures of him recently? He's like an incredibly good-looking old man. That's insane.
Oh yeah, yeah. That running joke about Kevin Bacon and Guardians too.
Yeah, that was great.
Mm-hmm.
The holiday special. Mm-hmm. There are 7 Tremor movies, and they just look visually they just keep getting worse and worse. So you have Tremors, then you have Tremors 2 Aftershocks. Okay. Tremors 3 Back to Perfection. Then you have Tremors 4 The Legend Begins. I don't know why they decided to do that on the 4th movie, Legend Begins. And then we have Tremors 5 Bloodlines, and this is where it gets even better. We have Tremors A Cold Day in Hell. And then we have Tremors Shrieker Island. So if you guys, if you like Dune, I check out Tremors as well.
Tremors A Cold Day in Hell?
It came out in 2018. 2018.
Okay.
That was definitely a straight to VHS. Yeah, the people in this movie, pretty awful. It actually has a 5 out of 10 on IMDb. It's actually not too bad. But enough Tremors talk, guys. Enough Tremors talk.
Yeah, so that all being said, that there's been a lot of influence with Dune. You can't help but notice that in other movies and shows and different things that have come out. So, yeah, it's just wild to see. I kept, every time something would pop up, I was like, oh, I've seen this here. I've seen this here. And I'm thinking they, are just coming up with these ideas. And I'm like, no, they took these from the OG, Frank Herbert himself. So
everything comes from Dune. Everything today, every movie, every book, it's just Dune rewritten.
Yeah. So, so was there anything, and I don't want to be too negative, but was there anything from well, I can start it off by saying, I don't know if it's necessarily negative, but there definitely were changes that were made, and I think some better, some maybe not so much. But I know one thing I would have liked to have seen in the film, because I think they were a pretty key character, which Lee already kind of touched on it, but the character of Kynes in the movie is just kind of in the first film is just quick. Like, she's in and out. But in the book, Kynes has a very, very influential role in kind of the politics and how things work with the Fremen, and also his influence in the Sietches, or the Setches, where the Fremen lie. Like, he's a very influential figure. He's also, if I understand this correctly, the father of Chani, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in the books. So, like, that's a whole, I would have loved to see, like, because his introduction is really cool. How, he's this judge of the change. He's seen this happen. He's seen, different houses come in and out and do what they want with the land. And he's had to pretty much play both sides with still having the Fremen culture, trying to preserve the Fremen culture and everything they have. And that would have been cool to see. But in the movie, it's one, they kind of, which I'm not saying this is a negative necessarily, but they gender swapped and everything, the character, which is kind of weird because it kind of plays with, I'm saying in terms of the book, it kind of has a different vibe. So that already kind of threw it off. And also, too, the character itself in the movie just kind of comes and goes. And I don't think she even dies in the same way that he does in the book. It's a totally different thing in the book. It's like a whole drawn-out thing.
Doesn't she just get, like, sniped? She's, like, calling a sandworm to ride it, and she's just, like, killed.
Yeah,
that's it.
It's a quick. Yeah, and that was one thing that was kind of a bummer. But that's also after having read the book. When I initially saw the movie, I didn't even know really much about Kynes anyway. But having read the book, it's kind of a bummer that we couldn't do more with that character. I think the also big one too is Thufir Hawat, the Mentat, as well. He has a big role in Dune Part 2, especially, or later on in the book, and he was kind of chopped down. So
who was that? Who was that?
He's he has the white hair and like the little black mark. He's like the Mentats. I couldn't think of anything else but like I was thinking C-3PO, like a protocol droid.
Yeah.
Like they essentially they can do data translations and calculations and be able to.
It's a human. It's like a human computer. Yeah. Which I guess C-3PO is a good example of that. But the Mentat
who was the dude from Star Trek? Who was like he looked like a dude that was a computer.
Data, yeah.
Data.
There you go. But, close enough.
What a great show as well. The Next Generation, my God. The Mentat is actually really an amazing thing. And I kept reading in the glossary or whatever in the back of the book, all the different elements. Right. But
also how they came to be was very interesting. Like how the Mentats actually came around. There was some kind of revolution or revolt or something with computers or something along those lines.
Yeah. One of the questions that I think I've seen a lot of people pose, and we might have even talked about it ourselves, is like, why the hell are they using swords? Right?
Yes.
And it's like, well, because they've advanced so far beyond ballistics that doesn't really matter. Excuse me, they don't matter. And so they've gone back to this kind of archaic tool, but something also that in some instances is made from part of the sandworm. And I don't know, just again, Frank Herbert, like being lucid on mushrooms, coming up with this stuff is just a weird trip. Pretty cool.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, there was some characters, like I said, in the first film, Thufir, Kynes, I think that was about it. One other thing too, it's not necessarily a negative, but a difference is that in this movie, and the director has said this as well, that they wanted to give Chani a little bit of a different role in this film and give her a little bit more to do in this as well, which I think I was fine with that. I think I like Zendaya, as an actor. It was cool to see her. And I think it kind of helps you when Paul starts to have his kind of change and starts to become the Muad'Dib and the actual ruler, if you will.
LEE-san Al Gaib.
Yes, and LEE-san Al Gaib as well. When that starts to happen, having that connection and that established kind of love interest with Zendaya, it hits a little bit more once he starts to change and he starts to mold and his character changes. So I like that. I think that was a smart thing to do for the movie. And also, too, like it's more relatable because everyone loves like a love story and, the flirting and the, all that. And like,
they were getting hot and sweaty. They were getting hot and sweaty at one point.
Lee, actually, because you had this in the notes, and all I know in the notes, you said like no sex.
Lee was getting hot and sweaty. Oh, no, I thought you said Lee was getting hot and sweaty
in the notes, and I wanted him to, because I think I know what you're saying, but I didn't know for sure, and I didn't know if you wanted to expand on that. But I noticed like in the books too, there's really not any. Yeah. Like nobody ever gets down and dirty.
We don't have any Zack Snyder sex scenes.
No.
40 minutes fire, slow mo. No.
Like people have children, but there's never any. That's not really like a thing. Like I don't know.
Yeah, it reminds me of like Amish love, right? I don't think that's very like colorful.
We're talking missionary.
Yeah,
we're talking even be missionary.
It may just be passing a vial to your lover for her, to do with it what she may. And
yeah.
For me, I think that actually that may be where they're at as a society because it's all pretty bleak, right? I think they've forgotten what joy is. And there's not this like tension of anything sexual in the movie or movies. And there's definitely not in the book.
They did talking about sex. What is Austin Butler's character's name? Fade Rotha. So Fade Rotha, she talks about what's her name? Margot. She talks about how he is is it Margot? Yeah. He winds up having sex with her, right? Because Margot gets impregnated. Yeah, she gets impregnated by him.
Even that
but she talks about how one of his weaknesses is sex.
Right. And even that though, with the whole thing of the Bene Gesserit, like that for them, it's not even like a pleasure thing. It's just it's a duty. They just have to keep those bloodlines going, keep implanting their influence across different houses.
I will take it back a little bit because he does expand upon it. I talked about this earlier with the Baron, but it's not overly grotesque, and it's not
right.
No,
doesn't it doesn't take also a lot.
Lady Jessica too. There's some things in the books where they obviously hint that she's seductive or that she exudes some type of sexuality and stuff. I think that's probably the Bene Gesserit kind of.
Oh yeah,
because there's the part where they're like where her and Paul, it's in the movie too, where they're on the helicopter in the first movie with the Harkonnens, where they're taking them out to the desert, and she's like, her mouth's covered. Yeah, and in the book, they kind of are insinuating that they're going to have their way with her. I can't remember in the movie if they say it the same way, but
they definitely do. So in the movie, they talk about like how they've never had one like her before, and that's when Paul's like, "Don't you touch my mother."
Yeah. So. Okay. So they did that pretty close to the books, but yeah, but he has a good way. Herbert has a good way of kind of not making it like in your face or grotesque, but yeah. The Baron is kind of weird. He's like, well, Lee, you already kind of touched on it, but he's kind of creepy.
He likes kids,
which I'm glad they toned that back in the in Dune, in both Dune movies. I thought Bill Skarsgård did it really well of getting that more of the
Bill
powerful.
Skarsgård.
What's that?
Bill Skarsgård?
Is it Bill?
You mean Stellan?
Stellan. That's what it is. Stellan. I'm sorry. Bill. Who's Bill? Bill's the youngest? Is that the Crow?
Bill. Yeah, dude. That's Pennywise. Come on, okay, dude. Do you remember?
I'm getting my Skarsgårds all mixed up.
There's Alex.
There's a lot.
Skarsgård as well. There's quite a bit of them.
Mm-hmm.
No, and that's the thing, because some movies, like we were just talking about, like Zack Snyder, like I know it's people's style, but there are some movies, a lot of movies today where there's sex thrown in it that's completely unnecessary. And I'm not 15 anymore, so I don't get giddy over it. You know what I mean? It's like there's just so many movies where it's just like a random sex scene for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and you're like,
and I do like how they did it. Yeah, I liked how they did it in Dune Part 2 with Zendaya, or not Zendaya, Chani and Paul.
Yeah,
they just got finished, but it wasn't like, you know, I mean, like,
Okay.
I mean, like,
Okay.
no, I'm
They
just saying,
just
like,
got finished.
it was done. It was just done in a way where it was like, you know, okay, they did what they did, and that's it. Like, it didn't linger on that. That wasn't really the point. The point was
in
the
that-
conversation that they had afterwards.
In the
That
desert,
wasn't.
man, be so sweaty, sticky,
Well,
sand everywhere.
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
Have the wind
Everywhere.
traps, so
Yeah, but still, they were sweating a lot.
I will tell you,
Okay.
Paul had a thumper of his own, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, he did. Yeah, he did. I'm sure a sandworm was you know listening in when they're lucky. They're lucky that a sandworm didn't come and eat them up because I'm sure they were thumping.
Yeah,
but they were probably on some sand because there was a part in the movie which I like this little detail when this is really now we've gone off the rails, but little things that they did in the movie where yeah, right. The first time that he's going to ride a sandworm, which I found it funny because he asks her, "Can I do it?" And she's like, "No, only like bloodline Fremen do it. Like you're not going to get a chance." And then like the next scene, they're like, "All right, go ahead." And there were a lot of scenes like that where it's just like real quick cut, which like it took me a minute to like kind of collect my thoughts. Yeah. But real quick, I'll just finish. The one thing that I thought was cool. What do they call it? Is it literally called the thumper? What is that thing that they call?
Thumper.
That they call. Yeah. So like how he goes to the top and he like, this sounds weird after our conversation about sex, but he like sticks it in the sand and it's thumping. It's just doing its thing. And she's like she literally is like, "No, you have to take it like further down."
That's what she said.
It just sounds awful. You have to go further down because like it wasn't, the sand is so compacted up there because it's like at the highest point that it's not going to make enough sound to attract a sandworm. So, you know, he realized that goes down a little bit, sticks it deep into that sand. Then he get that nice thumping going, and then he gets a granddaddy worm, man. But it was little stuff like that like I actually liked because like I wouldn't have really thought about it initially, and then just the quick like, nope, like you got to do it this way because they know every detail of how to survive out there and what you need to do. I found that very interesting, and I like that they put that little detail in there.
Yeah, and to add with that is one thing too. And I won't put this as a negative, but it's something worth mentioning that in the book, and this happens in a lot of adaptations, like the book, a lot of things take time. It happens over a long period of time. So Paul's whole, you know, journey with the Fremen, being initiated and doing all these different cultural things, like it's the span of like several years, and in the movie it's kind of like a span of like a week. It's hard to do. It's one of those hard balances to have. So but I like the way they did it. But yeah, there were some times where it's just like, you know, they put all this pressure on this, and then it's like the next day he's doing it anyway. It's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, it was just, there was a lot of scenes. I don't feel like I felt that with the first one, with part one, but the second, with part two, there was just a lot of scenes that like, and I didn't dislike it, but it actually made me really think because they'd be like talking about something or doing something, and then like literally just a split second later, next scene would just be something completely different or them acting on that. And like, I'd have to sit there and be like, did time go by? Is this the next day? What is this? But it got me thinking. So I didn't necessarily dislike it. I just, like it made me like be on my tippy toes the whole movie because I had to be paying attention. This was not a movie that I could watch and be on my phone and like still get the gist of it. Like I had, sorry, I'm shaking my whole table that the computer's on. I'm just getting so giddy. Like I had to pay attention and really like know what was going on. There were a few times where I had to rewind it to a certain point to be able to like catch what they said or what's going on. So, but yeah. And even like, I know it's a good movie when Michelle's interested. And I've said this about other ones. I think we talked about it before recently, but like she came downstairs, I was in the middle of it and she started sitting down and watching it, was like asking me questions about it and so on and so forth. So, but yeah, a lot of like cutscenes, just like real quick on to the next thing. And you have to be aware of what's going on, or else if you walk away to go to the pisser, you're going to come back. And if you're like me, who didn't read the book, you're going to be like, what the hell's going on? Like, can you rewind it a minute back so I can know what's going on? But I liked it, man. I like movies like that.
Overall, would you say you enjoy? I mean, I think I can say that you enjoyed it. It's one of the better ones. Would you say it's one of the better movies you've seen in a while, or you're not? Because a lot of people were hyping this up. Like when it came out, there was a lot of hype that was around around the film itself, and people were like really on it. And I honestly think that it did actually meet the hype. And I think part two even met that even more as we get Lee back in here.
Yeah. And I agree that, well, yes, I agree. I enjoyed both of them very much. Like I said, like all joking aside, like visually, I thought both movies were gorgeous. I thought they were beautiful. Like
Yes.
the way they're filmed, the scenes, the color, like everything in it was right up my alley. The score, that like loud, like the like I can't
Hans
even.
Zimmer.
Dude, oh yeah, it is Hans Zimmer, isn't it? The
goat
woman like singing that like leads into the movies. Yeah, dude, it's just it gets you, man. Like the whole feel of everything cinematically just got me going. So I really enjoyed it. I love the cast. Like I said, this was a thinker for me. I'm not the smartest, so like I had to bounce a lot of questions off of you guys because I was like I didn't know Dune beforehand, so. I have questions still, to be honest with you. I was going to ask one, and we can get to it. But it was a thinker for me, so I really had to pay attention to the movie. I had to rewind it a few times. I was bouncing stuff off of you guys. When I was watching the first one, I was texting both of you, like, what does this mean? Why is this character gone? What happened here? I thought they were alluding to this, and now nothing's happening. So, yeah. I mean, I enjoyed both. I do believe... Now, this is purely going off me just watching the movies, but I think I like the first one better, but I think that's because it was my introduction and there was a lot that went on. Very much like the second one as well, but I do believe I like the first one better. But it's I don't even want to say that because, like, I don't know. Equally, they were great.
It's hard, too, because they're, like, two parts. Like, it's kind of one.
Yeah. That's why I'm like, together. I can't even really say that, to be honest with you. But I think it was also just my introduction, and I didn't really know what I was getting into, so it made me kind of, excited. I just said I don't get giddy over movies, but
you sure did.
This one. But I do have a question for you guys. Before I forget. So in the first movie, the gentleman in the first one that Paul kills, the Fremen. Jameis. Sorry, I had it in my notes, couldn't find it. Jameis. What I'm confused about is he is having visions of Jameis training him as a Fremen, like in the ways. And then he winds up killing him. And I'm like, he's literally like he has, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he literally has like dreams or visions, whatever it is, in the first one where him and Jameis and like they're literally talking, and he's like, I'm going to show you the way, how to become a Fremen, all this stuff, and then he kills him. And I'm like, is that like alluding to the fact that because he killed him, that was the way that he got in? Do you know what I'm saying? And then in the second one too, there was a part where he was in the desert and he's talking to Jameis. He like alludes to Jameis, and I'm confused. So, I need help.
I'm racking my brain here, but I'm pretty sure he did not want to kill him. No, and it was like a rite of passage.
Well, no, exactly.
I was gonna say, I look at it, having read the book, I think that whole thing was because this is one distinction that actually I forgot to mention because this is different in the book. Because in the book they have that match. Paul was apprehensive to fight him in the first place, but he challenged him. And in their culture, once the challenge is made, the only way to be out of that is death. Like somebody has to die. It's just the way it is. But in the book, after that happens, they actually have a ceremony back at one of the sieches or the sages, however they say it, their temples. They have a burial kind of sacramental ceremony for Jameis, where each person has to take something that the person owns or that Jameis owned, and they take that from the area, and then they say something about what a good friend and what a good person Jameis was and how they had a connection. And there's a whole sequence where everybody's looking at Paul to then get up and take something and say something, and he has like an inner dialogue where he's like, I don't even know, like, we didn't have, that connection or anything. Like, I don't even know what to say, but he does it anyway. And I feel like that was like maybe a way of the movie trying to still have that, I don't know how to explain it, like the spiritual connection to him. Because like in the books too, like in their culture, the Fremen, if the Fremen person dies in that combat, they actually get the wife, or the wife of that person becomes the wife of the person that bested them. So in the books, Jameis's wife actually becomes Paul's companion, not necessarily his wife, but he chooses to make him his companion while still being with Chani, which I think is something smart that they didn't adapt in the movies because essentially, I guess you would call that maybe polygamy in a certain way. Like there's polygamous relationships. That's something that's very common among the Fremen. And the way that the woman's role in the Fremen is very
those poor women. Her husband gets killed, and then she has to give a Gok 3000 to the guy who just killed her husband.
Well, that's the thing. He makes it
kind of
clear.
messed up. Dude.
The interesting thing is he makes it clear because, like, in the books, essentially, Stilgar goes to Jameis's wife and says, like, it's up to Paul to choose either if she will be your lover or she will be your companion. And he's like, you're strictly my companion. Like, we're not lovers. And she's like, oh, is it because I'm too old? Is that why? Is that why? And Paul's like, no, but he's it's like, because Chani. No, it's because Chani's his main squeeze.
Yeah, and this is actually, in my opinion, a good segue to something. Unless Brian, you wanted to add to that.
No, the only thing I was going to throw out there is I know that they hear, like, essentially the desert can speak to you. So, like, you'll hear voices, and they're like, "Don't lose yourself." And I'm like, are they going to use that as a way for him to start communicating with? But it sounded like it was negative more than anything. Is that going to be a way that maybe Jameis can speak to him? Because like I said, in the second movie, he's walked through the desert and he's like talking to Jameis, like asking like for help essentially. And I'm like, what is going on? Because someone who didn't read the books, he had all these visions of Jameis training him and being with him and being a mentor and like leading him in the ways of the Fremen just to kill him, which, like I said, opened the door obviously to get him in. Because like you guys said, it's life or death. Like that's what had to happen. And then he was taking his wife on the side. Disgusting.
Well, but I kind of did a roundabout way. I didn't really, my point was, I was saying is that, like, I think that was trying to give you more.
No, I get it.
Like trying to make Paul seem more.
Yes.
I don't know how to explain it. You know what I mean? Like trying to give Paul more of a lighter side
exactly. They were trying to make him a kind of righteous, like, you wanted to feel as though he was the savior and for the right reasons. And as obviously as the film goes on, you feel very different. But Paul was only 15 when you met him. Okay.
And he was clapping cheeks at 15 with Shawnee?
So the book takes place over 4 years, I believe.
Damn.
It's still young. So take that with what it is. But in the movie, it's basically like, it feels like they're only together for like a couple weeks, and it's definitely not years.
Yeah.
So that was a huge difference between the book and the film. And Paul in no way, shape, or form is 15.
No,
in the movie.
I had no idea he was that young.
But yeah, that's how, when you meet him in the book, he's 15. He has this like sword battle with is it Yue? Who's he battle? I can't remember who he battles. Is it Duncan? Somebody in the beginning. There's like this, it's kind of like coy. And then you see this like kid grow up very quickly, but at least there's years in between the text, and that's not represented in the film at all.
Do you mean when he's training in the first movie? In the first movie, him and Gurney go at it, and we had a discussion about that, Lee. I think when you were away taking a dump.
My daughter's sick. I'm sorry, I had to bring it.
Oh, come on, man. Come on. No, you were dumping. You were dumping. He was taking a little poop.
If that was a dump, that was a quick one for a Collier kid, let me tell you.
Yeah, Lee takes like 2.5 hour poops. Regardless, you take a sandworm type poop is what you take. Think about how long that took, how massive it is. These pipes in his home are just destroyed from his turds. But to move on from that, we were talking about essentially how, like, when I was watching it, Lee, there were times where like things happened so quickly that I had to like wrap my head around it, because it's like, we just said, I'm like, was that 10 minutes or was that a year? Because I don't understand. Like, that's the one thing I feel like in the movies, I didn't mind it because like I said, it made me think, and I really had to be like, what's going on? But they didn't. Hearing what you guys have to say, they may have not done the best job of really conveying time in a sense, because coming from the end of the first movie where he kills Jameis, he kind of gets brought into the Fremen, and then the second movie happens, like you would think it was like the next day, and they were just like, all right, like they were hesitant of him, but they brought him in. Me viewing it as just purely off the movies, I'm thinking it was a quick thing, which obviously isn't the case.
Yeah, I mean I think that's one of the. It's just hard to do with doing a book to film adaptation. I think that's a common criticism with a lot of adaptations. There's that one meme, or it's been like on the internet, about Lord of the Rings, when Gandalf gives the ring to to Frodo and puts it in an envelope and says, "Keep it secret, keep it safe. I'll be back." And he goes off to Minas Tirith, I think, to do the research about the ring.
Yeah.
In the movie, he's maybe gone for like I
Oh
don't
yeah.
know, like a month. In the books, I think he's gone for like 14 years or something wild like that.
Oh, was it? I thought it was like 8 months or something.
No, it's definitely longer in the books. Like
we gotta find this out.
He's gone. I'm pretty sure he's gone forever.
I think I found that out this year. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a while because that's why. Because in the movies, like he's kind of shocked, but like in the books, he's extremely shocked to see Gandalf because he pretty much thinks Gandalf is like dead because it's been freaking forever. He's like, "What the hell?" It's like seeing a ghost. But in the books, or in the movie, it's just kind of like, "Oh yeah, hey, I'm back. I learned some things."
I think the fact that they did not need to carry out Jessica's birth and the baby growing to 3 years old, that with Anya, however you say her name.
I think it's Aaliyah.
Aaliyah, sorry, way off. So removing that enabled them to condense things too. And like I said, I think the film was super redeeming, and like it's okay that they changed those things.
Yeah, they had. I think there's different areas where they were smart and doing and leaving stuff out and shortening stuff in. Like I think for the most part, they did it in a way that you know it just for the sake of time and how long a movie could be. Even though for me, I would have been fine with both these movies being 3 hours plus. Honestly, I would have been cool with that. I think it's epic enough that you could have had a crazy. I know for common theater goers, maybe not, but I'd love to see like an extended edition, like Lord of the Rings, with these movies. Me personally, but
you were right, by the way. He was in Isengard, or like for 17 years researching.
17
years. 17 years. They couldn't have done like a year. It took him. Can he read 17 years? A lot of material to go through apparently. And then when just real quick snippet too, when he was trapped on top of the tower in Isengard, he was up there for 2 months. 2 months, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, time was a little off. But like I said, for me, like it didn't really bother me that much. It just kind of had me scratching my head here and there.
I would say, because this is another thing I had in our notes too, is just kind of like, and this kind of digs into the conversation of what actually makes a good adaptation of a particular source material. Like what is the thing that, and I think it's subjective. I think everyone's going to have a different way. But for me, I think like, does it get the overall, first of all, like visually, can you envision the things that are in the book? Do these visuals actually match with what you could have imagined in the book, or you could see it being that way? Does it have the right vibe, the tone? Does it fit? Do the characters have the mannerisms or characteristics of what you see in the book? I think overall, for me personally, I think it was a good adaptation. I think they hit all those marks. And I think even better, when you have the sensibilities of Denis as a director, his sense of scale when it comes to the size of like ships and different like carriers and stuff like that, plays so well to this movie, and I think that's also, and props to the cinematographer Greg Fraser, who he works with a lot. Just the way they were able to do scale and just really give you that feeling of the whole the massive and epicness of this place and all that, and the worms especially, how they're able to get like the daunting size of the worms and everything was impressive. So overall, I would say I approve. I think it's a good adaptation. I think they did as best they could.
Two Boos approved.
And
I just
had a note real quick because I got to add something what you just said. So I wrote this down. There's a scene where Rabban is almost killed by somebody on a thopter, and then somebody snipes that person that's trying to kill him, and they're flying off into the distance.
Yeah,
and it
so
was
good.
It just gave this like sense of scale to this planet that I mean, I'm so thankful they put that little scene in there because there's a couple of them, but that one alone, I was like, holy crap. It just kept floating for so long.
It's funny too, because I literally thought that. I was like, the fact that they really made like a focus on how long that individual was falling for, I thought the same thing watching it. I was like, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it sticks with you. There's imagery that stays with you. I know like in the part 2, the Emperor's ship that's like hovering over Arrakis. That shot is with Paul kind of overlooking and seeing it like that. And also the sandworms coming up on the Sardaukar when they attack Arrakis in the second one. wild. But go ahead, Brian.
It is funny too. This is just going along what you guys said, but the machinery that they lay down to collect the spice, it's kind of adorable if you watch it, because that has so like in the second one when they're trying to take out like what are they called? They look like big mosquitoes, what they're flying in. What are they? You just said it.
Ornithopters.
Yeah. And they're like trying to take one out, and they're hiding behind like the little hands that are like dug into the sand from this machine that was dropped to collect the spice. And it has just like little things that are just like hitting the sand just to, I'm assuming, just to kind of get the spice up. Yeah. It's just like, I'm like, and maybe they explain it in the book, like what those machines, I understand it's like extracting the spice from the sand and from the air or whatever it is, but they're massive. So I'm like, what all is this thing doing just to get the spice? Like, it has to be complex because it's huge. But I thought it was adorable because its little things are just hitting the sand just to kind of push it up and get it going. I thought it was cute as hell. But and in the scenes too, where things are like blowing up and just falling onto the sand and exploding, like it's just like you guys said, just like how massive everything is, and then just the way it looks visually, it's gorgeous. It's beautiful.
So yeah, I think overall we both with 2 boosts approve it. Part 1 and part 2. Now I know you said you actually like part 1 a little bit more.
I think it's just because it's the introduction. Sorry, as I brush off my nose, I think it's just because it's the introduction to it, and I didn't really know what I was getting into. So once I kind of was into it, that's what she said. I was like, well, that wouldn't make sense, but I was like, damn, like this is really good.
Yeah,
it sounded weird, but no, I definitely. And just real quick, just a few thoughts. And maybe I'll wait till Lee comes back so he can put his thoughts out there too. But I thought that Paul's nickname that they give him, Maldeeb, it's adorable. It's just Desert Mouse. It's cute. Mouse. I mean, he actually is the one, because they want to give him something different, and then he's like, well, what about this? And I think that fits him perfect. But I thought that was cute. 2 boos approved. It's totes adorbs. Yes. I had my mind blown because I didn't read the books. I didn't know. My mind blown when I found out that Lady Jessica was a Harkonnen. I was like, okay. Because and once again, I didn't read the books. I'll say it for 100th time. I don't know, man. I don't know about her. And like Paul's having these visions of all these people like dying around her, and like I knew it was her when even in the first shot where they show her walking away, I was like, that has to be Lady Jessica or Jessica. Yeah, Lady Jessica. I'm like, it has to be her. And then they show another shot. She kind of turns to the side. You see her face. I just don't know about her, man. And this child she's carrying, is that child the chosen one, or is it indeed Paul? Was the chosen one this Messiah that they've been waiting for? Is it a male or could it have been a female? Do they specify that?
Well, so I don't know if you've heard the term Kwisatz Haderach thrown around at all.
Yeah.
Kwisatz Haderach. So, exactly. What that means is typically, the Bene Gesserit women, when they kind of infiltrate bloodlines for different houses, they are supposed to have a female that then they train in the way of the Bene Gesserit to keep the line going. Yeah. So when the Bene Gesserit has a male, it is said that when they have that male, he will be one of the first males that can actually, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he's he's the first male that to have the powers of the Bene Gesserit. Essentially, he can use the voice. He has clairvoyance. He can see the future. He could even see things even more vastly than the Bene Gesserit can. So that's where you get I believe that's where the Messiah part of it comes from.
So is it confirmed that he is the Messiah? Do we know?
So, I haven't read Dune Messiah, so I don't know.
I didn't think so, because I mean the whole time he's talking about, he literally says like I'm not him. Like I'm not him. I'm just here to help lead these people. Like this is what I'm here to do. And then towards the end of the movie, he's like, all right, I'm the guy. Like it's like Spy Kids 3D. He's like, I'm the guy.
I'm the guy.
Stop saying you're the guy. We all know that you're not the guy.
He's not the guy.
I
am. No, I'm the guy. But like you don't really know. So me not reading, I don't know. I'm like, I mean, he's leading and he's doing a damn good job of it. And I kind of like the whole badass him coming in like, it is me and you're gonna listen to me. and enough. Like no one can challenge me. I that whole scene where he stood in front of everyone, they're like, you can't talk, you got to do it this way. You got to challenge someone to take their spot, and he's just like, nope, and gets up there and like rallies everyone. I thought that scene was awesome. I also thought Timothy did a great job. No. Timothy did a great job of like conveying himself like as a badass in that movie. I was like, I did not expect it to be done as well as it was, and he knocked it out of the park for me. But I'm like, is he or is he not? I don't know. Yeah, he's convincing me, but I don't know, man.
Speaking of the future, you should be able to find out soon, because we did get confirmation either last week or this week that the sequel to this Dune Part 2, I don't know if it's going to be Dune Part 3 or Dune Messiah, who knows, but it did get approved and it is in production. So Denis Villeneuve is supposed to come back to direct. He's planning on writing, so they're going through the process. Now, I don't know, are they going to adapt Dune Messiah and Children of Dune as one movie? We don't know yet, but we'll get some answers.
They got to keep the directorship, because when they start transferring like they did with Batman, I don't know, keep the directorship under the same person. Yes. The Star Wars titles, I feel like they fumbled around with a lot of those. You guys got a little messy more than I do. I want to say I worked for Barnes & Noble between the years of 2000. It was either 2000 or 2001 through 2008. I must have restocked never forget 1,000 times. Like, I remember stocking that section and being like, who the hell would read this stuff? Literally thought that. First of all, now I know who does. But then
Ye of Little Faith.
Also, there's a metalcore band called Shai Hulud, which I've known about for
that's
a
hilarious.
very, very long time. They're huge. It's a big band, by the way.
That's actually that's awesome.
And after hearing that in this movie, I was like, holy crap, that's where their name came from. And so there's things that have started to fall into place.
It's all clicking.
Yeah. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Lee. That was beautiful. 2001, baby. Never forget. Sorry. My final thought. Poor Zendaya. She had it all. She had the chosen one in her bed with her. And now who knows? And she's a little salty. But I like in that scene. What's the Emperor's daughter's name? Princess Irulan. And he's like, I will take your daughter and I will take care of her. But essentially, like, you have to pay for what you did to my father, my bloodline, whatever. Not my bloodline, but my father and my family. And in Zendaya, they just zoom in on her face. I was like, oh, man, you jerk.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
They went hard on the feels between her and him. They did at the end there. Yeah.
But it was almost like it was a political move, though. So I don't know, like, it seems more political than anything. I agree. I'm just saying it's like, because he obviously still has feelings for you know what I mean? Like, he was like looking back at her when she walked away. Like, he has that connection. But it's like, man, I felt it. I was like, damn, dude. But I get it's like a political thing. It's like, I got to kill you, dude. I'll take care of your daughter, but like, you got to pay for what you did to my dad.
Oh, that's the other thing. He does not kill.
No, I know.
Baron in the book. I don't know if you guys.
Oh.
Yeah, I haven't gotten there. I have 40 pages left, and I'm like waiting for that part. Or I'm waiting for the part with Zendaya, which I don't know if that's, or the part at least where he says he'll take Princess Irulan's hand. I haven't gotten there just yet. I'm waiting for that part.
That was done very similar. I mean, but it's all wrapped up because like the last 40 pages that you're about to read are going to be extremely different than the movie, but also similar in that obviously Chani's heart is broken. I don't even know if it's her heart. I think it's just the fact that she found somebody that she felt she could trust so deeply, and that now she's not sure of him. Right?
Well, it just seems like her pride was hit though.
Right?
Because like she did put her trust in him, and then he's like, "Peace out, man. I got to do what I got to do." Once he got to that level, but
I drank the blue juice, and now I'm ready to go, brother.
Maybe it was because she slapped him in the face. When he came back to life, she's like, oh, thank God, and just whack and walked off, and he was like, done.
That was also done very differently. I kind of liked how they did in the book a little bit more, because Chani has in the book has some mystic. She has like a connection to some of the mystics, but like she hasn't gone full Bene Gesserit or anything like that, but she's fully aware of those things. And in the movie, they kind of made her more rebellious, and she's kind of like very apprehensive about religion and its influence and mysticism and all that. One thing I wanted to show you guys real quick, because Brian, you were talking about, do you guys remember this little vision in the first movie?
The first movie, yeah.
So like a lot of people have went back to this because you could see like they're in completely different clothing. They both have the blue eyes and stuff like that. But it's a good, it was kind of a good hint of what's to come. I don't know for sure, because also too, like you can see, obviously Chani's kind of pissed off. But from what
she kind of always seems pissed off.
She always seems pissed off. Right.
She's always a little angry. Like even after they had sex, she was kind of like,
But like in the end of the movie in part 2, it kind of you don't know for sure, but it kind of seems like she's just running away. You don't really know where she's going. Yeah. She's kind of just leaving. But that vision there, maybe there's a chance to get back together and something happens, which I think they do.
Maybe she's his side chick. Maybe she's his side chick.
I was just saying, I think that is the case. I kind of cheated, and I think I had read somewhere I got intrigued. And I think perhaps that they still end up with each other in some fashion while he's still with the Princess Irulan, maybe like a companion lover kind of thing. But
the whole thing is like Paul and Princess Irulan, are they actually going to be like? It just to me seems it's more it's going to be more political than anything. Like I don't know if it actually will be like a sexual relationship, and we talked about how that's not like a huge thing in the culture. Like it might just be like, you know. I don't know if it'll actually be the emotional level that he had. I don't know. It just seems more political than anything. Like did the Emperor die?
No.
In the second one, or not the Emperor? I apologize. The what's his name? Christopher Walken's character.
The Emperor. You're right.
Oh, the Emperor. Okay, The Emperor. Did he die? He didn't die in the second one, right?
Mm-mm.
Okay, I wasn't sure. I couldn't remember. There was so much going on. In my
he
brain
basically bowed to Paul.
He
kissed the ring.
He kissed the ring. Yeah.
But the other houses didn't.
They didn't
aren't seeing that as Paul's taking over and he's the emperor. They're arguing against. I'm going based off the movie because I haven't finished the book, so I'm not sure what happens, how that sequence goes down.
So it's going to be all out war in this next movie.
That's what they kind of are alluding to, is that there's now there's disagreement among the houses, and not everyone's on board with Paul just coming in and taking over.
Speaking of religion, it was very Christ-like, throughout. Like it hit me really in the second one. Well, no, even the first one, where like he's walking through the Fremen, and they're all like kind of like that. You have half of them that are like, no, this is not the dude, and then you have half of them that are like, he is the one, like he's the Messiah. And then the whole, it's just interesting. The whole Messiah view that he's going to be the person to come essentially like liberate us and set us free. And then the whole him, what was it? The water of life. Is that what they called it?
Mm-hmm.
Like the blue juice they extract essentially from the sandworms. Like him dying, and they're like watching him. He's like, he's going to come back from the dead. And then he rises from the dead and he gets slapped, which I don't think that happened in the Bible, if I'm mistaken. I don't think Jesus got slapped after he rose from the dead, but maybe he did. Mary Magdalene was like, psh!
But look, the whole idea about the LEE-san Al Gaib, right? They all want this thing. They want it so bad. They've been waiting their whole lives, and now they have something that seems close enough, right? But Johnny says in, I think it's the first one, I don't remember if she says this in the book, but she says something along the lines of like, who will be our next oppressor? And he could very well just be the oppressor, right? Because people have just been just that, oppressed for their whole lives. And they see a light that is going to take them to paradise. So yes, it is very Christ-like, but there's still that like
hesitance.
And worry that he's not the right one. And the fact even the author did a great job, and so did the director in that aspect.
And even throughout the movie, they do a good job. Like Shawnee's very close to him, like obviously, and even throughout that, she's still like, I don't know, and like this religious stuff is just a story; it's not real. But you can also tell she's kind of like, maybe he is. Like, maybe he is, but that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if this dude actually is him or not. And like, he convinced me at the end that he may very well be, but I'm still hesitant. I'm like, I don't know. Which, like you said, goes to show it was done well, because I'm like, and it makes me want to see the next movie, because I'm like, I need to know what happens. And it seems like it's all hell is going to break loose at this point. So I'm pumped, man. I'm pumped.
The other aspect of
about
scale, we got to throw it in there. When you see the amount of people in that cave system that are bowing to him, you're like, holy crap. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Just the scale of the movie was quite amazing.
Stilgar, is that correct?
Yeah.
It's funny throughout the movie, because he just wants this. He wants Paul to be the Messiah so bad that just every little thing, and it like all aligns, because like Paul is hitting everything. Like, you know, how quickly he's learning, how he is as a person, riding the worm, how he fights, how he leads. Like, everything does fall into place. But like, Stilgar, after everything, is like, I told you, I knew it. And then like, when he gets up on that scene where Paul pretty much tells everyone, like, shut the hell up and listen, like, any one of you could stand up to me and I will defeat you. Like, you can't do it. And then he walks down to that guy and he like literally talks about the dude's like dreams and his life, which, like I said, that scene was awesome. And then the guy's like, yeah, this is him. Stilgar's just standing there like, I knew it was him. Like, it's just funny throughout the whole movie how he's like, I told you guys, like, this is the guy. He wants it so bad. But like, even with that, I'm still like, I don't know, man. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I'm getting passionate just talking about it. I didn't even read the book.
Yeah, Stilgar, like I touched on this before. He and I've said this, I think, to Lee. I don't know if Brian, I might have said it to Brian too. But Stilgar is probably my favorite character out of in books, movies, everything. And I think
of all time,
one of the best, I think,
one of
in
the
movies
best of
I've
all
seen.
time.
But he, again, and props to Javier Bardem or the writing, because he brought a little bit of levity to the movie in parts where it was kind of, you know, the tone was getting serious. He brought a little bit of comic relief, if you will, and brought that kind of levity to it, which I liked. And something about his like unrelenting faithfulness was like comforting to see, like that. Okay, you know, you're like, you kind of want him to be right, because he's just so he's so deep, and he doesn't let people, even though people go against him, he's still faithful. And he's like, no. He's like, just trust. Even in the times where he denies it, he's still the one. He just doesn't realize it yet. It's very.
I think it's like Lee said too. It's like they've been oppressed for so long. Like, even the taste of it, even if it's not actually him, just the taste of it is like so. You know, it means so much. It means so much to them. So, like, his faith throughout the movie, believing in Paul as the chosen one, the Messiah, is like. It kind of like makes you, like you just said, but it makes me feel that way as well. Like, I'm like, I want this for them. But at the same time, like, I don't know if that's who he is. So, yeah.
It doesn't matter how many movies I see Javier in. He's always No Country for Old Men.
Oh yeah, 100%, 100%. Ultimate badass.
Call it.
He was in Lyle the Crocodile, which obviously, if you don't have kids, you probably would not watch. But
Boo watches it.
He does a great job, and it's actually not a bad movie for being a kids movie. But the whole time I'm like, wow, what a difference in movies between No Country for Old Men and Lyle the Crocodile.
I loved him in Pirates 5. It's just incredible.
Was he in that?
Or Pirates 4. Was it Pirates 4?
He was in one of them. I can't remember which one.
I think it was Pirates 4.
He's great.
He actually was good. That movie wasn't great, but he was good in it. He did well.
Everything he's in, he's good, and he doesn't phone it in. He always gives. It seems like he's given like 150% every single time. And again, this role too was. He's already said, he's been on record with saying that like this is like a dream role for him, and he's always loved the character of Stilgar. So it definitely came through, and I think that's cool. Why we all kind of love him too, because he put everything into it. So
can we just say that Duncan Idaho is literally he's the shit.
Yes. So yeah,
I think he is unbelievable. In the book, he's like fine. In the movie, Momoa just crushes it. Like, so good. And if he could be given an Oscar just for that role, he should, because I think he just did such a fantastic job.
I was sweating.
And plus, Michelle loves him, so there you go.
Oh my god! Well, you know what she does, but the scene where he dies in part 1, he like had like, I mean, throughout the movie he did, but like that's the scene that Michelle saw of him, and he has his face shaved. Michelle was like, don't really like him as much with the face shaved, and I was like, okay. Like that's your husband. Well, I'm not Jason Momoa. I'm not nearly the size of that human being or sexy as him. But I don't have facial hair, so it kind of hit me in the gonads pretty hard. But he is gorgeous, and he did really well. Like he fit that character in the first movie perfectly. Like he was lovable, but he was a badass that you didn't want to mess with. And that's Jason Momoa, man. That's like most of the roles he's in. But oh my gosh, what is that? Is that a sandworm?
I don't know. Hold on.
No, you're good. So yeah, I mean, real quick here, as we come to the close, some of the oh, is he back?
I'm just muting myself because I don't want you guys to hear the dog. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're good.
The dog, so he had to mute for a minute.
No
worries. And then he took a quick dog.
Second of the night here on the show.
He's just pooping a lot.
No, but that, I mean, yeah, there's some great the characters all around, and that goes back to Frank Herbert for creating the characters, and like I said, one strong point of the movie is that every person seemed intentional, every person kind of gave it their all, and made it worthwhile. So yeah.
LEE-san Al Gaib! LEE-san Al Gaib!
Yes, I love the screen at the end. It's great.
And then the little tweet at the end.
Yeah. I think that was in the movie. I think that little fart sound was in the movie, if I'm not mistaken. That's where I was playing it from. So,
but yeah, I mean that pretty much we covered a lot of ground here. We talked the book itself, the adaptations, the characters, the score, what we liked, what we didn't like. I mean, we touched on a lot of different things, and I think it's safe to say that we're definitely excited for the sequel here. It couldn't come soon enough, and I can't wait to see what more is into this. Go ahead, Brian.
Wait, before we go, I just want to shout out Austin Butler.
Yes, we didn't even talk about Fade.
We didn't even talk about Fade. Mm-hmm. Austin Butler, even though he had that big ass dome, looked like a giant egg on his head. I thought he did great, man. I thought he did great. I really he was convincing enough for me. I feel like it was kind of like a build-up just to be let down, to be honest with you. Like he almost killed Paul. Would have been cool if he just chopped Paul's heads off, single head, excuse me. Well, maybe both. I don't know. Just chopped them off, and then it was like Dune, done. But I thought Austin Butler did a pretty good job. I enjoyed it.
He did great. I just don't. Again, having read the book, I'm not sure where they got this whole thing of Fade being this like crazy psycho killer assassin
sex
kind
addict.
Of guy.
Exactly.
That didn't really translate in the book. I definitely feel like Austin Butler or somebody, or maybe the director, was telling him to take a different approach.
I'm not talking about the book. I didn't read the book.
No. I'm saying.
So relax.
I'm just saying. No, I'm just saying. I like what Austin Butler did. I thought as an actor in the role itself, like it was very good, and he was intense. But like, I was confused when I read the book, and I'm like, this is not even like he doesn't even look like the way they describe him in the book is like nothing at all. Didn't
you guys say he had hair in the book? He had beautiful black hair.
He looked normal. He looked normal for the most part. Like there wasn't anything crazy about him. But Austin Butler gave it his all. He definitely went in on that role, and he was a straight savage. So as a role in the movie, I was okay with it. But if we're looking at the source material, it was definitely they took some artistic liberties there. But it's cool. No, it was good. He was a good character. Before we sign off here, did you guys have any last points or anything you wanted to say? I think you guys kind of covered it, probably.
No, I froze. Yeah. Look at that face.
You froze it like a Robert De Niro kind of face.
I was like, yeah, I did. I did. I just gotta get a mole. No, I got nothing. I just want to say thank you to my brother. He's a sweetheart. He means well. Means well. he's a good man. Yes, I know. I appreciate him.
We don't need to get all lovey-dovey. I love you, Brad.
I love you, Lee, so much.
With this movie and this book,
specifically,
I think my takeaway is like you should try things that you don't think you would like, because you might very well like them more than you thought. And the book is not something in 38 years living up until this point that I thought I would like. I loved it. So I don't know. Maybe go see Barbie. It might just be what you need.
What? the hell are you talking
Just
about?
like,
Boo, what is...
I'm saying there's movies or books that I'm like, why the hell would somebody read that? Actually, there's a really big series called like A Court of Thorns and Roses that I think mostly women read.
One of my
But
favorites.
It's huge. It's huge.
Yeah.
If you look it up, like,
does our grandma read it?
Sarah J. Maas writes these books, and they're super lengthy. And like, I'm thinking, why would people read this trash? But I'm going to read it because I really want to know. And it might just be great. It might be terrible. But I think
did you
should
say
always try things.
Did you say that women are reading it?
It's largely loved by the...
Oh my God. It's just sex. That's all it is. It's like 50 Shades of Grey. There'd be grandmas reading that book just orgasming at an airport.
Science fiction. It's science fiction. I mean, it's not. It's fantasy. Sorry.
Robot sex.
But like, I don't think there's a ton of spice in it. There is a lot of spice out there that women are reading, and I don't really understand why. But
yeah. And speaking of that, Boo, what is something that you've never been into, but you want to give a shot, that you want to try? Say something. I'm just thinking like there might be something that you're secretly wanting to try, but you've been so scared to come out and say it. So this is your chance.
Nothing comes to mind. Nothing comes to mind. But I do agree with Lee's point. I agree with his point of like, yeah, like, and that's the other thing too. Like, I wasn't sure
safe space.
I wasn't sure if
safe space.
I that's true. There's no place safer than the Two Boos podcast.
Maybe like a bomb bunker or something.
I it's easy to get into the thing of like, oh, this is just overhyped. Why should I give it the time? All this stuff. But there are cases where the hype is real, and it is worth checking it out and giving it a shot because there's a reason why so many people have such, allegiance and loyalty to a particular thing, and they love revisiting it. And I think this is one of those situations. So
that's how I feel about. Yeah, no, finish your thoughts.
No, I'm just saying I'm glad the movies came out and introduced me to this world, and I was able to then jump into the book and props to all the other fans out there that were way ahead of the game and actually already knew about it. So it helped me.
I'm ashamed of myself. I got on the hype of Little Betty's oatmeal cream pies recently, and
they're good.
Dude, I had.
Wait,
it was cream
pie. Was
your
nickname in high school cream pie? I could have.
Wasn't yours cream me under the benches?
His nickname was Little Betty.
Boo's name was Little Betty. Everyone had their way. But that's besides the point.
Yeah.
Where I'm trying to get at is I feel like a loser that I get on this hype beforehand, not with the cream pies, with with Dune, because like I don't know why it took me so long. And I'm ashamed to say too that I didn't see either in theaters, which I agree, Boo. Yeah. Seeing that second one in the theaters would have been amazing. But with my daughter, she just won't let me go. She loves me too much. She won't let me leave the house for 3 hours, so she won't let me do it. But if I would have saw that in IMAX, I would have.
You guys should come over here and we could watch. We could watch them on that screen down in the basement.
We could.
That could be a good use of the 130-inch screen that I built.
I'm down.
Wasn't your nickname in high school 130-incher, Lee?
No, I was not that blessed.
3.5-incher. Let's continue.
Yeah, I mean, and that props, and that's also too for the movies. It's definitely a movie that I feel you can rewatch. It has good rewatchability, and I would love to do. We can do a full, just back-to-back marathon of part 1 and part 2, and just watch it all the way through. Nice little 4-hour epic. I think that'd be pretty fun. But
I'm gonna need some popcorn with extra butter. Yeah, maybe a CZ or a DC, if you know what I'm trying to say.
True. But yeah, man, that's it. That's everything. I feel like we covered a lot of ground. I feel like we have a lot of insight, shared some insight. So just reaching out to the people listening or the people watching out there, have you seen Dune? Have you read the books? What do you think? We love starting the conversation. So wherever you're watching this or listening to it, if you have the medium to comment or give some thoughts or review, let us know what you think. And also too, if you're watching this on YouTube, please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. We do appreciate the support. Please if you liked a portion of the show, please let us know. Stay with us.
Subscribe, baby.
Subscribe. Be part of the Two Boos crew and get in on the reviews, the reactions, all that good stuff. So again, I want to thank Lee for joining us. I do want to say that Lee does have a TikTok page, pages_apart. We will link it.
Hell yeah.
In the description for the video. And
what the world just happened?
As my lights power on,
Messiah has come.
Oh my Lord, dude! What is happening? What is going on right now? It's just like just one final thought. Boo's house is haunted, by the way. Someone died in there in the 70s during a orgy, but more than likely, yeah. But did you buy, Boo? Because you went to the movies twice to go see this. You bought one of those popcorn buckets, the sandworm, didn't you?
How did I forget to talk about this? I wanted to.
With extra butter around the rim is what you asked the guy. And then the weird part is you went into the Barbie movie afterwards.
I did not know the popcorn
thank you. Thank you for mentioning that, because I totally forgot. I totally forgot about that.
It's a sandworm, and I don't need to say it.
That's a sand light, is what it is.
People, did you see the meme? The memes were amazing. It was like some guy was like, "Can I get one of those sandworm buckets?" And then he went to Madame Web. He didn't even go see Dune 2. He's like, "I need extra butter around the rim. I got to go watch a movie." And he went in the Madame Web.
Nice.
That's weird.
Sickos.
On that note, if you have one of those popcorn buckets, let us know. We'd love to see if
ship it to Boo's house.
Ship it over my way. But yeah, thanks again, Lee. Thanks for joining us. Again, we'll link your TikTok page in the description of the video and everything. And it's always a pleasure. So yes, Brian also, as always, thanks for joining as well. And thanks for checking us out. Were you going to say something, Brian?
Nah, I have to be here, man.
True.
It would be single Boo.
That's
what
true.
you've done. But single Boo doesn't sound as good as two Boos.
It's not the same. You're right.
One Boo.
One Boo podcast.
Yeah.
The single Boo podcast. So I appreciate it though, and I thank you, Lee, for being here. I'd love you. And I had fun.
Alrighty. Well, with that being
LEE-san
said,
Al Gaib.
LEE-san Al Gaib, the voice from the outer world. We come to you in peace. Enjoy.
What the hell is happening? Dude's losing it, man. He's losing it.
Thank you for watching, and we'll see you guys real soon. Take care. Peace out.
God bless.
See ya.